Have you ever headed to the grocery store to go grocery shopping and realize when you get there, I didn't write a list. I didn't check what was in the refrigerator and in the cabinets. I'm not exactly sure what I'm supposed to get. So you get a couple choices. You can go home, you can call, see if somebody's home and can tell you, or you can just roll in and figure it out. What do? I just roll in and figure it out. And I usually end up buying the wrong stuff, right? You walk in the store, what do you see? Aisle after aisle with shelf after shelf full of stuff. Invariably, you're going to grab the wrong things. So you come home, find out, oh, I didn't get this. I didn't get the dozen eggs I needed. I didn't get the milk I needed. So generates another trip to the store, right? Can we agree that it's usually a pretty good idea to just check what you have and make a list before you go to the store? And you do that, why would you go buy a house without doing it as well? I'm going to talk about the buyer experience when buying a house during this video series. It's 4 sections. This is before you look, in the house, your offer, and contract to closing. So before you look, we've got 5 areas that you really need to focus on. And this is important. If you do this right, it's going to set you up for success in the future. If you don't, you're going to have to make another trip to the grocery store. So those 5 areas that you need to look at: wants versus needs, pick your team, market conditions, financial health, and how it works. So in wants versus needs, talking about going back to the grocery store thing, right? You need to get some milk, you need to get some eggs, you need to get some bread and deli for your lunch, whatever. Do you really need those potato chips? Do you really need that ice cream? Well, according to me, yes, but do you really need them? So you got to understand what your needs versus your wants. What I recommend, sit down and write everything down. You can do it on a piece of paper, you can put it on your phone, you can do it on your computer, whatever works best for you. Write it down. And then review it. Let it sit for a while and review it. If you're buying with somebody else, make sure you talk to them as well. What are their wants and needs? Put those needs down. And the needs are, just from a definition perspective, needs are things you can't do without. I have to have this in order for this house to work for me. Wants are the nice to haves. It would be great if, but if they're not there, no big deal. So a good example here. I have a client. One of his needs is that the house has to be built after 1980. Well, I asked him, why does it have to be built after 1980? What's going on there? He's concerned about the plumbing, the electrical, making sure it's all safe. Totally get that. Can we do something different there and take the age of the house out of the equation? The reason I say that is, in Connecticut, the average house was built in the 1950s. So that takes a lot of houses out of the mix. And we really don't have a lot of houses on the market right now anyway. So it makes that opportunity to find the house that works for you much, much rarer. It makes the whole process a lot harder. Now, what happens if there was a house built in, say, 1920 that's been recently renovated and the plumbing and the electrical and all that has been replaced completely? It's brand new. Doesn't that meet the same need? So this is where you have to be really clear on what your needs are. You can set yourself up, and this is something, write it down. This is an important point here, please. You can set yourself up to fail by making your needs too restrictive. Keep that in mind. When we're working together, I'll tell you if I think your needs are being too restricted, and I'll give you some ideas on how you can rework those needs, but it's something to think about. And the other thing is, when you write those needs down and the wants, bring them with you when you go look at houses. And you're going to change your mind over time. Even if you write them down and then come back to them 2 days later, you're going to change. And that is okay. So wants versus needs, very important. One of the very, very first steps that you need to take when you're getting ready to buy a house. The next area you need to focus on is picking your team. And there are 3 key players. So if you think back to elementary school and you're out at recess and you're playing dodgeball or kickball or whatever it was, you pick 2 captains and then they pick the teams. Did they pick the weakest people first, or did they pick the strongest players first? I mean, you might not be comfortable, but the truth is they picked the strongest players first, right? You want to do the same thing. And there are 3 key players on this team that you need to build. The first one, real estate agent. The second one is the lender. The third one is the attorney. The attorney come in a little bit later, but the real estate agent and the lender are up front, and I'll tell you why. Any one of those three or all three of them can make or break your deal, make or break your experience. I've worked with attorneys and lenders and agents that don't respond to phone calls, that ignore issues. These are all red flags. These are issues that can cause you a lot of heartburn before you get to and at closing. So keep that in mind. Get somebody who's responsive, got a lot of experience. You want people who know closings. You want people who know real estate so that they can see issues coming down the road and fix them before they become an issue and you never even know about them, or you hear about it, but it's just, oh, we had this issue, took care of it, no big deal. So picking your team is absolutely critical. One of the things that people don't really think about, they look for the most famous, or they look for the one that's got, somebody gave them a recommendation, and that's fine, but make sure you've got a good personal fit with that person. Everybody's a little bit different. Everybody does things a little bit differently. If they're trying to force you to work in a way that you're not comfortable, then it's not going to be an enjoyable relationship, enjoyable experience. It's going to be a chore. So make sure the personal fit's there. Make sure their experience, their negotiating skills, market knowledge, all that stuff is there. Picking your team makes a big difference. The third area you need to focus on, market conditions. Use multiple sources. Talk to a bunch of different people, but take into account their experience. Go talk to your parents, go talk to your uncle, your friend, whoever. But if the last time they bought a house was 25 years ago, take their advice with a little bit of a grain of salt, because the market is just very different. Now, if they're talking about make sure you do a home inspection, you need to look for this in a house, that in a house, okay, that's important information. But if they're talking about how to negotiate deals and what the price should be, things like that, just make sure you take into account their experience. And most important thing is, and this is why picking the team is so important, listen to your team. When I talk to my buyers, I tell them, I am going to run the numbers. I am going to look at the house with you. We're going to have a discussion, and then I'm going to go sharpen my pencil, and I'm going to tell you, this is what I think the house is going to sell for. And usually pretty darn close. If you ignore that, you're going to not get the house. If you listen, you got a better chance, especially in this market right now where it's a lot of competition. And that's an important thing. When you understand the market conditions, if it's a buyer's market, which you are not in right now, if it's a buyer's market, there's a lot of sellers and almost no buyers. Buyers have all the control. They can dictate the price. They can dictate the timeline, all that stuff. We're in a seller's market right now. The sellers have the control. And that's just because inventory is so horribly low. Demand is definitely down from a year or 2 years ago, but inventory is even lower. So right now, the nice houses, they're getting multiple offers. They're getting 2, 3, 4, or a house that I just closed on, 50 offers. That seller has the choice, has the control, and makes the decision. You need to understand as a buyer if you're in control or if the seller is in control of the market or if it's balanced. This goes back to the needs and wants. If it's a buyer's market, you can be a lot more picky. If it's a seller's market, you got to decide what are the real needs, what are the things that you're going to hold the line on, and what are the things that you can work with. So knowing those market conditions, absolutely critical. Fourth one, financial health check. Also called a pre-approval, whatever you want to call it. This is super important. You have to know what your financing situation is before you start looking for houses. Why? There's a lot of reasons. If you think that you want to go buy $1 million house, well, that's great. I hope that you can. But if you don't have the finances to do it, then you're not even going to get in the front door, because they're going to ask for a pre-approval or a proof of funds before you can schedule the showing. If you think that you can only afford a $250,000 house, but in reality you could afford a $400,000 house and you can get a lot more of the likes or the needs and wants that you had, that's important to know as well. So you need to know what's in your bank account. You need to know what your credit looks like, and you need to talk to one of your team members, the lender, to know what you could qualify for a mortgage if a mortgage is the path that you're planning on taking. So this helps determine the budget. And a lot of people want to go look at houses and then say, well, when I find the house, I'll get a pre-approval. It doesn't work that way. Or you can try to do it that way. You're not going to get the house, or you're going to have a very, very reduced chance of getting it. I went and looked at several houses today, 6 houses. During the time that we were looking, one house went under contract, and another one I was notified there's multiple offers, and we need to get it in by tomorrow. So things are happening quickly. You don't have time to go spend a couple days getting a pre-approval after you found the house that you like. And especially with the low inventory right now, it may be a while before you find the next house you like. So that financial health check, pre-approval, whatever you want to call it, is very important. The responsiveness and speed with which the lender works and the ease with which you can work with them, your fit with them, is very important as well. I like to say, I stole this from somebody. I don't know where it came from, but I like it. You date the rate, you marry the house. You date the rate, you marry the house. Interest rates are high right now. They're going to go back down. So you take the rate that's here if you find the house, if you need to go and buy. And then when interest rates come back down, you refinance. All right. The final thing I'll say, that pre-approval or proof of funds is basically a bank statement saying you got the cash in the bank. But that pre-approval, it's the ticket to the dance. You can't get in the door to start looking at houses, and you certainly cannot make offers without proof of funds or a pre-approval, because the seller won't look at it. Think about it. If you own the house and somebody just came up to you and said, hey, I want to make this offer, but they can't prove to you because you don't know them. They can't prove to you that they actually have the money. Are you going to go under contract and lock your house up with them? I know I wouldn't. So it's the ticket to the dance. You need it. That financial health check and the pre-approval are absolutely critical. And the fifth area you need to look at before you go look is how it works. What do I mean by that? Each of your team members, the attorney, the lender, and the real estate agent, should sit you down and go through, this is how this process works. Here's the terms you should be expecting. Here's how this, step 1, step 2, step 3, how it plays out. What I do is what's called the buyer consultation. It's about a 30-minute presentation. I bring a copy of it, leave it with you so you can review it. And it goes through from start to finish, the things that you're going to need to do, the things that I'll be doing, and the things that the other team members will be doing, the lender, the attorney, home inspector, etc. Talk about, I can provide you with recommendations, or you can use your own team members, whoever you want. And then after that 30-minute presentation, I'm available for as many questions as you have until we get it wrapped up. And usually that buyer consultation takes an hour to an hour and a half. So there's usually a bunch of questions. And that's perfectly fine. It's important to understand what you're getting into and how the process will work so that you can be prepared. You don't want to be surprised. So those are the 5 actions you need to take in order to be ready before you go look. This is the first part of the process. Make sure you're prepared. If you do these well, then it's going to make the entire process so much easier from start to finish.